You're nothing but support staff, Anthony. Some people are just meant to serve others. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I was standing in Patricia Ashworth's pristine kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, while she and her bridge club friend Nancy discussed my life like I wasn't even there. My name's Tony Rodriguez. I'm 48 years old, and at that moment, I owned a construction company worth $9 million. But to Patricia, I was just the hired help who happened to be sleeping with her daughter. Let me back up and tell you how I got there. I was 14 when I watched my mom cry over a stack of bills at our kitchen table in East Austin. Maria Rodriguez worked 3 jobs: cleaning offices at night, breakfast shift at a diner, weekend alterations at a dry cleaner. The numbers weren't adding up, and we both knew it. That night I promised myself I'd never let her struggle like that again. Dropped out of high school at 17 and joined the Army. Did 4 years, learned discipline and how to build things with my hands. When I got back to Austin at 22, I enrolled in trade school while working construction during the day. No college, no degree, just calluses and determination. The Army taught me something important. There's a difference between people who talk and people who do. I was in the second group. By 25, I had my contractor's license and was running small residential jobs around town. Bathroom remodels, kitchen renovations, deck installations. I learned every trade: electrical, plumbing, framing, finish work. By 32, I owned Rodriguez Construction and Design, and we were pulling down serious contracts, high-end stuff. Tech executives in Westlake Hills trusting us with their million-dollar renovations. Celebrity homes in the hills west of Austin. Commercial office build-outs for major companies. We specialized in the kind of work where quality mattered more than price, and my reputation was bulletproof. I met Stephanie Ashworth on a Tuesday morning in March at a job site in Westlake Hills. I was overseeing the gut renovation of a tech CEO's kitchen, custom cabinetry, imported stone countertops, the works. She walked in wearing a tailored blazer and carrying a clipboard like she owned the place. "You're the contractor?" she asked, looking surprised. "Owner of the company?" I said, wiping sawdust off my hands before shaking hers. Stephanie worked luxury real estate, showing million-dollar homes to tech money and old Austin families. She was 33, spoke fluent Spanish from college, and had this way of making you feel like the most interesting person in the room. We grabbed coffee that weekend, dinner the next week. 6 months later, we were talking about moving in together. "There's just one thing," she said over wine at her downtown condo. "Mom's been struggling since Dad's heart attack last year. She needs someone around, and I was thinking we could stay at the family house for a while, just temporarily, until she gets back on her feet. I should have asked more questions, should have met Patricia first. But Stephanie made it sound like a few months, and I'd lived in worse places during my Army days. The Ashworth house sat on 2 acres in Westlake Hills like something out of Southern Living magazine. 2-story colonial with white columns, circular driveway, lawn that looked like a golf course. The kind of place that screamed old money, even though I'd later learn it was mostly borrowed money. Patricia Beaumont Ashworth answered the door wearing pearls at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. She was 68, silver hair pulled back in a perfect bun, the kind of woman who'd never worked a day in her life but somehow managed to look perpetually busy. "You must be Anthony," she said, not offering her hand. "Tony," I corrected. "I prefer Anthony. It sounds more refined." Red flag number 1. The rules started immediately. Shoes off at the door, no work clothes past the foyer, coffee only from the French press, never the regular machine. Dinner conversation required appropriate topics, which apparently didn't include construction, sports, or anything I actually knew about. "What university did you attend, Anthony?" Patricia asked during our first family dinner, cutting her chicken with surgical precision. "I didn't. Went straight into the Army, then trade school." She made this humming sound like she was processing disappointing news. "How practical." Stephanie jumped in quickly. "Tony built his own company from scratch. He's done work for some amazing clients." "I'm sure," Patricia said. "Manual labor is certainly necessary." I bit my tongue and focused on my food. It got worse from there. Patricia had this talent for making comments that sounded polite but cut deep. She'd introduce me to her friends as Stephanie's companion, or mention that I was between opportunities when I was literally running a company that employed 23 people full-time. The worst part? Stephanie just let it happen. Every time I brought it up, she'd say her mom was adjusting or from a different generation. But I knew what I was seeing. Patricia didn't respect me, and Stephanie was too comfortable to fight for me. Still, I kept my mouth shut and my head down. I fixed the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom, repaired the broken cabinet hinges that had been squeaking for months, handled the lawn maintenance. When Patricia mentioned they were cash flow challenged, I quietly started covering the mortgage payments. What they didn't know was that Rodriguez Construction was pulling in $2.8 million in annual revenue. We'd landed 3 major contracts that year: Dell's new headquarters expansion, a luxury hotel renovation downtown, and a tech campus in Round Rock. I was building something real, something that would last. But in that house, I was just the guy who knew how to fix the garbage disposal. Patricia made sure I knew my place. She'd ask me to handle little repairs around the house, then make jokes to her bridge club about having a handyman living with them. When contractors came to give estimates on bigger projects, she'd introduce me as Anthony. He dabbles in construction too. Dabbles. Like I was some weekend warrior with a Home Depot card. The financial arrangement started small. Stephanie mentioned the water heater needed replacing, and I handled it. Then the AC unit went out in the middle of July, and somehow that became my responsibility too. When Patricia casually mentioned they were behind on the mortgage because of unexpected medical expenses from her husband's heart attack, I started covering that too. I justified it to myself. We were living there rent-free after all. I was saving money on my own place, and Stephanie seemed genuinely grateful, even if she never stood up to her mother's constant digs. But the comments kept coming. At dinner parties with Patricia's country club friends, she'd make sure everyone knew I was self-taught and hadn't attended university. She'd steer conversations toward topics I couldn't contribute to: classical music, European travel, wine that cost more than most people's car payments. Anthony works with his hands, she'd say with that smile that never reached her eyes. It's so refreshing to meet someone who does actual labor. The way she said actual labor made it sound like I was digging ditches instead of managing a multi-million-dollar business. Stephanie would squeeze my hand under the table and change the subject, but she never called her mother out, never told her to back off, just let it slide because confrontation made her uncomfortable. The breaking point had been building for months, but it finally hit that Thursday morning in March. I was in the kitchen making coffee before heading to oversee a commercial renovation project when Patricia walked in with Nancy Wellington, her best friend from the country club. They were deep in conversation and didn't notice me at first. "How much longer is this arrangement going to last?" Nancy asked, settling into one of the kitchen chairs. "Stephanie keeps saying it's temporary," Patricia sighed. "But honestly, Nancy, the man doesn't even have proper education. He sits around all day with that laptop pretending to run some little construction business." I stayed quiet, waiting to see where this was going. "It's embarrassing," Patricia continued. "The way he dresses, those work boots at the dinner table. I've tried to civilize him, but you simply cannot make silk from burlap." That's when Nancy spotted me by the coffee maker. "Oh, Anthony, we didn't see you there." Patricia turned, her cheeks flushing slightly, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "We were just discussing your situation," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. "Nancy thinks it's wonderful how charitable Stephanie has been, taking you in while you get your little business off the ground." I set down my coffee mug slowly. "Charitable? Well, yes. You're obviously struggling financially or you wouldn't be living here. It's sweet how Stephanie supports you while you figure things out." I looked at both of them. Two women who'd never worked a real day in their lives, talking about my struggles while sitting in a house I was paying to maintain. "You think I'm struggling?" I asked. "Oh, Anthony, there's no shame in it," Patricia said with mock sympathy. "Not everyone is cut out for real success. Some people are just support staff. Support staff." Those words hit me, like I said, like a physical blow. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, letting it sink in. This woman had been living off my money for 2 years while treating me like hired help, and her daughter had been watching it happen. I walked out of that kitchen without saying another word. Went straight upstairs to my laptop and pulled up the banking app. Started canceling every automatic payment I'd set up. Mortgage, utilities, car payments, credit card minimums, country club dues, everything. Then I called my accountant. "Maria, it's Tony. I need you to cut off all payments to the Ashworth accounts. Everything. Today. Are you sure? That's substantial money we're talking about." "I'm sure." "And Maria, send me a breakdown of exactly how much I've been covering. I want to see the total." While I waited for those numbers, I packed. Not everything, just what mattered. Clothes, laptop, important documents, a few personal items. I could replace the rest. The breakdown came through on my phone 20 minutes later. $347,000 over the past 2 years. Nearly $15,000 a month keeping their lifestyle afloat while they treated me like charity case. I forwarded the email to my divorce attorney with a simple message. Prepare the papers. I'm done. Stephanie found me loading my truck in the driveway an hour later. "What are you doing?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. "Leaving! You can't just leave! Where will you go?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I'd been with for 2 years, who'd never once stood up for me when her mother treated me like garbage, who'd watched me get humiliated at dinner parties and said nothing. "Anywhere but here," I said, throwing my last bag into the truck bed. "But we need you. We need to talk about this." I turned to face her fully. "No, Stephanie. You need my money. There's a difference." Her face went pale. "That's not fair. You know I care about you." "Do I?" "Because for 2 years, I've watched your mother treat me like hired help while you stood there and said nothing. You let her call my business little and pretend while I was paying for this house you're both living in. She doesn't mean it the way it sounds." "Yeah, she does. And you know it." I climbed into my truck and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see Stephanie standing in that perfect circular driveway, looking confused and small. For a split second, I almost felt bad for her. Then I remembered 2 years of dinner parties where she'd let her mother humiliate me in front of strangers. I checked into a downtown hotel and started making calls. First to my lawyer, then to my business partners. Rodriguez Construction had enough cash flow that I could disappear for a few weeks without missing a beat. The crew knew their jobs, the project managers were solid, and we had contracts locked in through the end of the year. By evening, I'd booked a flight to Maui. The call came 3 days later while I was sitting on Wailea Beach, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and purple. Unknown number, but I recognized Stephanie's voice immediately. "Tony, thank God. The power company called. They're shutting off electricity tomorrow. The mortgage company is threatening foreclosure. What's happening?" I took a sip of my beer and watched a sea turtle surface about 50 yards offshore. "I stopped paying your bills." "You can't do that. We had an arrangement." "No, we had me being an ATM while your mother treated me like garbage. That's over now. This is crazy. You're my boyfriend. Check your email. Divorce papers were filed this morning." Silence. Long silence. Then, "Tony, please. We can work this out. Mom didn't mean what she said. Yes, she did, and you let her say it. For 2 years. We're going to lose the house. Not my problem anymore." I hung up and blocked the number, but that wasn't the end of it. The next call came from Patricia herself. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Anthony, we need to discuss this like civilized adults," she said, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "I'm listening. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I never meant to imply that you weren't valuable to this family. You called me support staff. I was having a stressful morning. You know how I can be when I'm overwhelmed." "Yeah, I do know. That's exactly the problem. Anthony, please, we simply cannot manage the house payments without your assistance." Stephanie is beside herself. Should have thought about that before you decided I was beneath you. "I'll apologize, publicly if that's what it takes." "It's too late for apologies, Patricia. You showed me exactly who you are." "But we're practically family." I actually laughed. "No, we're not. Family doesn't treat each other like hired help. Family has each other's backs. You never saw me as family. You saw me as a meal ticket with work boots. That's simply not true. Prove it. Get jobs, both of you. Figure out how to pay your own bills like the rest of us. Anthony, please." I hung up and turned off my phone for the rest of the week. When I flew back to Austin 2 weeks later, my divorce attorney had updates waiting. "They're in serious financial trouble," he said, sliding a folder across his desk. "The house is officially in foreclosure proceedings. Multiple credit cards are maxed out. They've been living significantly beyond their means for years." "How bad is it?" "Total debt load around $520,000. Without your monthly contributions, they have no way to service it." "Any word on spousal support claims?" "They tried. I shot it down." Texas is a no-fault state, and you were never legally married. Clean break, no obligations. Good. There is one more thing, he said, pulling out another document. Stephanie's been calling, asking if you'd consider a settlement meeting. Something about working things out amicably. I looked at the paper, a formal request for mediation. What do you think? Honestly, I think they're desperate. Patricia Ashworth filed for bankruptcy last week. That hit me harder than I expected. Not guilt exactly, but something close to it. I'd spent 2 years being treated like garbage, but seeing someone's entire life collapse still felt heavy. Schedule the meeting, I said finally. But make it clear, I'm not writing any checks. The mediation was set for the following Friday at a law office downtown. Neutral territory, my attorney said. Professional setting to keep emotions in check. When I walked into that conference room, Stephanie and Patricia were already there with their lawyer. Stephanie looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 months. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her clothes looked off the rack instead of boutique, and her nails were chipped. Patricia looked even worse. The perfect country club composure was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of someone watching their world crumble in real time. "Tony," Stephanie said as I sat down across from them, "thank you for coming." I nodded but didn't say anything. Let them make the first move. Their lawyer cleared his throat. "My clients are hoping to reach an amicable resolution that benefits everyone involved." "I'm listening," I said. Patricia leaned forward, hands clasped like she was praying. "Anthony, I want you to know that I've had time to reflect on my behavior. I realize now that I may have been unwelcoming." "Unwelcoming," I repeated. "Perhaps I was protecting Stephanie in the wrong way. I see now that you truly care for her." Stephanie jumped in. "What Mom's trying to say is that we'd like to work out a payment plan, something manageable for everyone." I looked at their lawyer, then back at them. "A payment plan for what?" "The house payments," Stephanie said. "Maybe we could refinance, get a smaller mortgage. You could help us transition to something more affordable." "Or," Patricia added quickly, "if you're not comfortable with a long-term arrangement, perhaps a loan? Something we could pay back over time?" I sat back in my chair. These two women had spent 2 years treating me like garbage, and now they wanted me to bail them out. Again. "Let me make sure I understand," I said. "You want me to help you keep the house where your mother called me support staff?" Patricia's face flushed. I apologized for that. "No, you said you'd apologize. There's a difference." "Fine, I'm sorry. I was wrong to say those things." "Which things specifically?" She squirmed in her chair. The comment about support staff." "What else?" I'm not sure what you mean." "The jokes about my education, calling my business little and pretend, introducing me as someone who dabbles in construction. 2 years of making me feel like hired help in front of your friends." The room went quiet. Patricia stared at her hands. "I thought so," I said. "You're not sorry about how you treated me. You're sorry that it's costing you money." Stephanie tried again. "Tony, we know we made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can be a real family." "A real family," I said. "Where was that family when your mother was humiliating me at dinner parties? Where was that family when she told Nancy Wellington I was a charity case?" "I should have said something," Stephanie admitted. "I was wrong not to defend you." "Yeah, you were. For 2 years. Their lawyer cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could discuss specific terms." "No," I said, standing up. "There are no terms. You had your chance to treat me with respect and you blew it." "Tony, please," Stephanie said, tears starting. "We'll lose everything. You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't good enough for your family." I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "You know what's funny? My company just landed a contract to renovate the Four Seasons downtown. $3.2 million project. While you were calling my business cute, I was building something real." Patricia's mouth fell open slightly. "And Patricia, that support staff you were so eager to get rid of, he's worth about $4 million now, but you'll never see a penny of it." I left them sitting in that conference room and walked out into the Austin sunshine. 6 months later, Rodriguez Construction had expanded into San Antonio and Dallas. We were employing 35 people full-time, and I'd moved into a custom home I'd built myself in South Austin. Nothing fancy, just clean lines and quality materials, a place where I could wear work boots to my own dinner table. The best part came on a Saturday afternoon in October. I was having lunch at a cafe on South Lamar when I spotted a familiar face at the corner table. Isabella Morales, my girlfriend from high school, was on a phone call, clearly running some kind of business meeting. We'd dated senior year before I joined the Army. Lost touch after that, the way young people do. But seeing her again brought back memories of someone who'd believed in me when I was just a kid with big dreams and no clear path. She finished her call and looked up, scanning the room. Our eyes met and she smiled, that same warm, genuine smile I remembered from 30 years ago. "Tony Rodriguez," she said, walking over to my table. "I heard you were back in town making waves in the construction business." "Isabella, you look great. What are you up to these days?" "I run an event planning company, corporate retreats, high-end weddings, that kind of thing. Built it from nothing over the past 15 years. We talked for 3 hours. She'd started her business the same way I had, with grit, long hours, and a refusal to let anyone tell her she wasn't smart enough because she didn't have the right degree. She understood the grind, the satisfaction of building something with your own hands and your own brain. "You know what I always liked about you?" she said as we walked to our cars. "What's that?" "You never needed anyone else to tell you who you were. You always knew your own worth." It took me 48 years to really learn that lesson. But she was right. We started having dinner once a week, then twice. 6 months later, she moved into my place. No rules, no judgments, no mother-in-law looking down on me for not having the right pedigree. Last month, I flew my mom down from San Antonio for her 73rd birthday. She's retired now from all those jobs that used to wear her down. I picked her up in my new truck and drove her to my house. "Mijo," she said, looking around at what I'd built. "You did good." "We did good, Mom. You raised me right. Rodriguez Construction is worth $9 million now, and I'm looking at opening a branch in Houston. Not bad for a high school dropout with no real education. Some people think success is about having the right connections or the right degree. But I learned something different. Success is about knowing your worth and not letting anyone convince you you're worth less than you are. And if anyone tries to call me support staff again, they're going to learn real quick that this support staff can support himself just fine.